Well, welcome into Instant Reaction. This is following day 2 of the NFL Draft, rounds 2 and 3. And the Indianapolis Colts, they took 2 players where they were selected to pick. There was no trades for the Colts. They selected a player in the second round and the third round. Before we get to all of those players, I am joined tonight by Bill Brooks. Bill, 2 days into this thing, and I think the Colts have added 3 really good players.
Oh, definitely. I think they've had 3 players and 3 players of, let's say, need.
Yeah.
I think positions where they can help the team, and it's going to hopefully help raise the competition in practice. The guys can compete and may the best person win and be able to play during the season to help the football team win some games.
Yeah, and ultimately, we'll dive into these players here real shortly, but when you're drafting in the first couple rounds, you're looking at premium positions, and that is, as I just mentioned, we're going to really dive into that, but that is what the Colts did. And starting in round 2, now I've got my cheat sheet here so I do not mess up the name. I'm trying to get it. I swear, JT, I will have this down at some point. But the Colts selected a defensive end out of Ohio State, JT Tuimoloau. And this guy, you look at his statistics, and they are off the charts. He's the 7th. At the time, he was the 7th Buckeye selected. You know how Ohio State just churns them out after that national championship. Not surprised. This guy was the #1 high school recruit coming into college back a handful of years ago. 3-time All Big Ten, including last year he was first team All Big Ten. 44 career tackles for loss, 8th most in Ohio State history. 23.5 sacks, 6th most in Ohio State history. So that right there, those are some pretty eye-popping numbers, and especially where he ranks in a program as storied as Ohio State. You like all of that where you start for sure.
Exactly. You like all of that. And also, Casey, coming out of high school, he also played basketball.
Yes. Right.
He played in some big games. Last year he played in the college football playoffs, and 6.5 of his 12.5 sacks last year came in college football playoff games.
Right.
So the game wasn't too big for him. And when he had to make plays, he went out there and made some big plays for Ohio State. So I think the Colts got a real good player, a real good athlete that can go out there and play and help this team, especially at the defensive line, to put some pressure on the quarterback, but also hopefully make some tackles at the defensive line.
And stay right there, because ultimately every team here, you're fighting for Super Bowls. You're trying to get to the pinnacle. But it all starts by winning division. And if you think back to the last handful of years, the Colts have come up short in the division. They're right there. But you add a guy who, in the biggest games where all the lights, all the eyes are on him, he has not shied away from it. He's actually played at a higher level. You mentioned that. 6.5 sacks during that 4-game stint to win a national championship. Pretty impressive what the guy was able to do on the field.
Very impressive, and that's what you want. You want guys out there when the game gets big, when the lights are shining the brightest, you want the guys to step up. You want their play to be as good as the lights are shining out there in the football field. So this is one of those guys that have done that, and he played at Ohio State. They played in a lot of big games,
Correct.
a lot of big games against, of course, Michigan and in playoff games and things like that. So I think this is going to be an individual that's going to help this team, help this defensive line, and help this football team, especially on the defense, to go out there and make some plays and just wreak havoc out there against offenses.
And, we talked about you got premium positions in the draft, but you also addressed the needs, as you mentioned. And the Colts saw Dayo Adangbo in free agency walk. He went to the Chicago Bears. So you're able to kind of find and fill that void with a guy in Tuimoloau who ultimately you look at that pedigree, he kind of fits very nicely. So how important was it to kind of fix, maybe not fix, but at least add to where you lost a player who was a very rotational player in Dayo Adangbo?
It's always good. It's always get some guy in there that can do the job that you expect him to do out there in the football field, especially when you got guys like Samson Ebukam coming back from an injury.
Right.
Hopefully he comes back and he's ready to go. And you got Quiddipe out there as well, and you got Taekwon Lewis and go inside and outside.
Right.
So you got some guys out there, and you also have Latu. You have Latu. So I think it's good to have a guy like that added to the room so you can have some depth and you have guys who can rotate in and out. The guys can be fresh. And you want those guys not just to be fresh, but to be productive out there.
Yeah.
And this is the guy that was productive in college and hopefully can carry that over into the pros.
And you know of this, Bill, one of the best abilities is availability. And this is a guy who played in 55 career games in college, including starting 42 in a row. So that is a guy who showed he's going to be on the field. He's got that availability, which is just key, especially at this level.
It's key. I mean, you want the guys that you can count on that, hey, look, this guy is nicked up a little bit. He's going to be able to play. He's going to go out there and play. He doesn't have to be 100% because, in the National Football League, you play 17 games. By the end of the year,
you're never 100%.
You're not going to be 100%. So you're going to have to go out there and play with some bumps and bruises and some nicks. So this is a guy that can do that. And hopefully, you have the other guys that can do it as well, and you have a good rotation on that defensive line.
So one final thing before we go to the Colts' third-round selection on JT here. I just want you to hear this stat line he put up in one of the games as a sophomore. So this is in 2021 against Penn State. He forced 4 turnovers that led directly to 21 points. So his final stat line, he had 2 sacks, 3 tackles for loss, 2 interceptions, including a pick six, a forced fumble, and a fumble recovery. Now, according to ESPN stats and information, he's one of 3 FBS players in the last 15 years to produce such a stat line. You know this. It's so vital on the defensive side of the ball to create turnovers and get your hands on the football. Clearly, this guy knows how to do that.
And that's what you want. You want the defensive guys to get out there, get their hands on the ball, to get the ball back to the offense. If you can get 6 points out of it, that's
Right,
even
yeah.
better. So
Yes.
you know what? You go ahead and get a touchdown and save the offense so they don't have to go out and get a touchdown. But that's what you want. You want to create turnovers. You want to get the ball back to your offense. And he's a guy that can do it. I mean, he did it in a game and just wreaked havoc on the offense. And you want all your guys to do that. And I think with the new defensive coordinator coming in, Lou Anarumo coming in, you want guys to be able to fit that defense and be able to go out and play lights out, play fast, get to the ball, and get some turnovers and get the ball back to the offense.
Now, looking at what the Colts did in the third round of the draft, they stuck to a similar model, and that is sticking with the Big Ten. They went with a cornerback out of Minnesota in Justin Walley. And, I mentioned cornerback. That's a position that, we say premium, but they've also addressed that position very, very heavily in the offseason. Walley started 42 consecutive games to end his career in arguably outside of the SEC, one of the most difficult conferences in all of college football. Freshman All-American, 2-time Big Ten All-Conference member. Last year he had 12 passes defensed, which was third most in the Big Ten. Finished with over 30 passes defensed in his college career. So I assumed secondary would be an area that the Colts would address because you can never have too much depth, and it's always one of those things. The earlier you get these guys, the better they can get on the field quicker. And we mentioned in the offseason they brought in Charvarius Ward, and now you add a third-round pick to a group that has Kenny Moore, Jalen Jones, Juju Brents. We saw Sammy Womack play very meaningful snaps down the stretch last year. So you add you've got a handful of guys there fighting for some spots. Competition brings out the best of them, and that is definitely what they have done here at the cornerback spot.
Yes, they brought someone in that can compete, and you know what? That's what Chris likes. Chris likes the guys to go out there and compete because it's just going to make everyone else better out there in the football field. So if you have guys out there that compete and you want the best out there, you're going to put your best group out there. So you'll see them playing nickel, and you'll probably see them playing some dime. They're going to play some dime this year, I think, in this type of defense. So you'll have a lot of guys out there. And, unfortunately, there are going to be guys that get nicked up and get injured and not be able to play, miss a game or two. So you want to have guys in the rotation that can go out there and play. This is a guy that can play inside and outside.
Right.
He's played both, mainly outside, so you'll probably see him playing a little bit outside, but also he's going to get some reps on the inside to back up Kenny probably, or just to have a feel for, what's going on the inside. And that's what you want. You want someone out there that can play, and, you know what, I'm sure this individual is, a guy that can go out there and run. He ran, I think he ran on the 40-yard dash. He ran a 4.4, just below a 4.4. So he has speed. He can go out there and stay with the guy. So that's what you want. You want a guy that can go out there and play and make a difference out there, especially at the corner position. Very, very tough position to play in the National Football League. But this guy, he did it. He did it. He played it in one of the better conferences in college football. So he can go out there and do it in the National Football League.
And Chris Ballard spoke to the media after the selection, and one of the things that he mentioned, especially with Justin Walley, was when you have your 53-man roster, you have to view all of them as a starter because, as you mentioned, guys get nicked up all of the time. And I kind of want to go back to what you mentioned a little bit with Lou Anarumo and also the versatility that he gives you. He said he can play safety. He's played in multiple defenses because while he was at Minnesota, he ran through a couple coordinators.
Yep.
So he's played inside, he's played outside, he can play some safety. How beneficial is that versatility that he can offer at a young age to get him on the football field?
Oh, it's a lot. I mean, you could go out there, especially in practice, say, look, today we want to try you out safety. We want to play you safety. I want you to get you familiar with the safety position and how we like to run our defense. Maybe he plays a little safety in one practice. Okay. Next practice, you know what? We're going to put you in the slot. We want you to play and learn the slot. You know what? Okay, now we want you to play the corner. You know what? I want you to play the other side in the corner in the next practice. So if he gets a little bit of a taste of each position, it makes it that much easier for the individual to not only play different positions and be able to get out in the football field, but to understand the defense better. I know from an offensive standpoint, I try to learn all the positions at wide receiver. We had 3 wide receivers out there. I try to learn all the wide receiver position and also the tight end position, what they were doing. That gave me a better understanding of the total offense. So the same thing when defense. If this guy can play different spots out there, he has a better understanding of the total defense and what they're actually trying to do out there on defense during that time or whatever call is played, whatever play is called at the time. So I think it's important for young guys to try to learn the defense, learn different positions. And I think in the long run, it makes them more comfortable whatever position they play when they go out there on the field.
Now, you mentioned his 40 time at that 4.4 spot.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that he did in high school was he ran track. He ran the 100, 200, and 400. I know you're a track guy. You have some experience doing that. How does what you do on the track transition to the football field?
I would say this. Of course, it helps. Hopefully, helps you run or run more efficiently out there in the football field.
That would be my answer, but I never did track. So.
Right. It would help you run more efficiently and, of course, get in shape and hopefully increase your speed out there. But also for a defensive back, a lot of times, yes, when you run track, you are on a team. And outside of the relay races, if you run in an individual event, the 100, the 200, the 400, it's you against everyone else.
Yeah.
So it's just you against your competition, and it's similar to playing cornerback in the National Football League. Yes, there are defenses where you're going to have zone and you're going to have help in certain situations, but when you're one-on-one, man against man, you have to stop that receiver.
Yeah.
It's just you against him. So those are some of the similarities. So it's competition. You got to go out there. Yes, when you're out there one-on-one, yes, you hope the defensive line gets some pressure to help you out. So, yes, you have teammates to help you out there in regards to playing defensive back and being out there covering a wide receiver. But for the most part, it's you against that wide receiver and defensive back. So, that's the competition. So he runs track. He's used to it. So he's used to playing that position out there, cornerback, knowing that, he is kind of on the island out there, just him and the receiver. He has to do his best to hopefully stop that receiver. And running track helps him with that, and also by him just playing football also will help him.
Now, one final thing on Justin Walley before we wrap up here tonight. It's hard to really determine where he's going to be. He hasn't stepped foot in the building yet. We haven't seen him on the field. But we kind of touched on it a little bit before. But when you look at what this cornerback room is looking like, what are your anticipations on where he's going to be as he heads into his rookie year? Because, as I mentioned, it's a pretty stacked group right now when you look at that depth chart.
Yeah, it is a stacked group. And you know what? I'm figuring that he will get some play outside. And I say play, meaning in practice, they'll look at him outside at corner, since that's what he played most of during his college career. But for sure, they'll slide him inside, probably with Kenny and maybe backup Kenny. I know he said in his presser when he was talking to the media that, you know what, he looked up to Kenny.
Yeah.
One of the guys that he looked up to. So I'm sure he tried, kind of emulate a little bit of what Kenny does out there in the football field. And when he gets here, I'm sure he'll ask Kenny a whole bunch of questions and kind of pick his brain. So he'll probably play outside and learn outside, I think. So it gives them some depth outside and some competition outside, with Jalen and Juju and Womack and Ward and all those guys out there. But also he'll get a chance to play inside as well. So that'll be good for him. As I said earlier, the more positions he can play and learn, I think the faster it would be for him to understand the defense and what's expected of him out there in the football field.
All right, so through 3 rounds of the NFL draft, the Colts have selected 3 players. You had Tyler Warren on day 1. You had JT Tuimoloau. I'm trying. I swear I'm going to get it at some point.
JT.
And Justin Walley. We can call him JTT. We'll
right,
just do
JTT. I'm sorry, right.
And Justin Walley. So you've got 2 defensive players and a tight end. We've got a handful of areas I'm sure the Colts are still trying to address.
Yes.
What are you really looking for in day 3? What are some positions that you would not be surprised if they add some depth to coming up on Saturday's day of the draft?
Knowing Chris, how he always talks about the offensive line and defensive line, and knowing that a couple of players left from the offensive line, but you have a couple of guys coming in, stepping in, Gonzalez and Bortolini stepping in offense.
Yep.
I wouldn't be surprised if, he goes some offensive linemen, look at them later on in the round to add some depth at the offensive line, and possibly go as far as maybe, he has good luck with drafting linebackers later in the draft. So It wouldn't surprise me if a linebacker is picked in tomorrow and third day. So I think linebacker, offensive line, and he said you never could have too many defensive line. It wouldn't surprise me if they draft another defensive lineman. So those are the positions I think, that I look for that maybe they might target and see if they can find someone to help them in the 2025 season.
And I'm right there with you. I mean, you look at what they have left. Currently, we have just 4 picks left, 1 in each round 4, 5, 6, and 7. You mentioned O-line, D-line, a linebacker. I wouldn't be shocked to see maybe a running back.
Yes,
because
exactly.
The depth of this running back group has been talked of, that this is one of the best running back groups in a long time. So, I mean, I remember some guys at the Combine were saying they had 30 graded running backs, draftable graded running backs.
That's a lot.
That is a lot. I mean, a lot of times you'll have 15 guys that are, draftable grades, but sometimes it gets moved up. But 30, that's pretty impressive. So I wouldn't be shocked to see that. And, ultimately, quarterback is probably an area you might see. You look at what the roster looks like now. You had the 2 quarterbacks last year in Flacco and Richardson, but then you also had Sam Ehlinger, who had maybe not the NFL experience, but he had been in an NFL offense for a handful of years. Jason Bean could definitely take that step because he's currently on that roster, but I wouldn't be shocked to see maybe an addition to a quarterback spot. But like I said,
that's
right
a good
now,
point, Case.
The way they sit, 4 picks remaining, 1 in each round, 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th. And we will dive into all of that coming up tomorrow. We'll give you a little recap as well. We might bounce around a little bit in the AFC South because I know everybody saw what happened in round 1 there with that 2nd overall pick and Travis Hunter, who the Colts are now going to have to see twice a year.
Yes.
And ultimately you could look at it saying, well, you might see him 4 times a year since he's playing both sides of the football. So we'll kind of dive into a lot of that stuff tomorrow. But here we are at the end of day 2. I'm going to get this name right now, I promise. So the Colts have selected in round 2 JT Tuimoloau. They drafted cornerback Justin Walley in round 3 out of Minnesota, and they've got 4 picks tomorrow coming up, day 3 of the NFL draft. For Bill Brooks, Bill, thank you so much for being with me.
Thank you.
I can't do it without you. I am Casey Vallier. This has been Instant Reaction, brought to you by Sony.